just to give a series of introductory notes and numbers to open the floor. But the important moment of this whole roundtable will be the interventions of our invited speakers. We have the pleasure and the honor to have with us a set of experts in the field that will share with us their vision, their opinion, and as Platonas said in his opening speech, we really expect from our experts solutions. We expect to receive from them tips that eventually will help us as ECCE organization to continue the discussion on this topic, coming out with proposals that eventually can help Europe, our countries, our regions, to diminish this big problem. Let's start with a brief discussion of affordable housing. This is the central topic of our roundtable. Eventually, if you open different books, different studies, we'll find different numbers. It doesn't matter. The main question is that it is reasonable for our society to demand to our families, to our young families especially, to our young generations, to expend more than 1/3 of their gross income in housing. This is a big issue for our society. And of course, on housing in Europe, with different intensities in the different countries, we recognize a long list of challenges. Rising house prices and rent prices. Migration within our countries, also in Portugal, we're assisting continuously to a migration from our communities, from the rural areas to the bigger city centers. The constraints that you find in urban development, at least in Portugal, is a big problem. Performance requirement, we'll have, some of our speakers will develop it in more detail, but eventually we have too much demand in our housing. Disparities in housing markets in different regions and countries. The young people and the low-income families are the ones that are suffering more with this problem. Then you have the migration pressure. We'll come back later to this point. Climate change, emissions that we aim to reduce. Resilience and structural safety. We know more, we want to do more. And conflicts, we have to say. In some regions of Europe, we do have to start getting ready to rebuild the areas affected. So somehow, you are saying that you are living a housing crisis. We never see a moment in the recent history in which we have spoken so much about housing. And if you are speaking in different countries, also in our country, it's because it's really a problem. It's really a problem. Main causes: urban population growth, housing shortage, rise in construction costs, investment, speculation. Some regions of Europe are receiving an enormous pressure coming from this source, also in Portugal. And then the tourism. Tourism is also Europe. It's a continent that is continuously receiving this pressure. And some cities, some regions in Europe are particularly affected by that well-known effect, Airbnb. Some countries are more affected than the others. The diagnosis of the crisis is easy to be done. We'll have our experts that will tell us more detail, discuss in more detail, but in fact, even though in Europe we have experienced in the last 6 decades a continuous reduction of the birth rate, the migration is compensating. So the population in Europe keeps increasing. And on the other side of the street, housing construction, especially after the big global financial crisis, almost stopped. This was more pronounced in some countries, in some regions. For the case of Portugal, it was critical, and it's critical. We are far away to recover the point in which we were before the crisis. Prices is the consequence direct from this binario tremendous situation. In the last 10 years, between 2015 and 2024, the average prices of housing in Europe rised 54%. This is average for Europe. In some countries, the situation, the scenario is much worse. Hungary, in 10 years, the price of the housing is 3 times. In Portugal, Lithuania, Czech Republic, more than double. And the salaries, our salaries, did not follow this tendency, especially the salaries of the young generation. Of course, the situation has tremendous social consequences. Our experts will develop it in more detail. Allow me just to refer 2 or 3 of them. The age of living of our young generations, of their parental home, keeps increasing, with other direct consequences: delay in family formation, reducing family birth rates. Urban planning. Our families has actually a complete different structure that they used to have 10, 20 years ago. We require smaller apartments. Our built heritage is not prepared for that. And of course, we are declining the value of our housing in rural areas. In another direction, homelessness. This is a big problem in some cities. Okay? In Europe, just in the last decade, the numbers increase of 35%. Among many other consequences that you know very well, and you'll be listening our experts on it. But as Platon has referred in his introductory speech, in fact, we need solutions. As perspectives, at national level, at regional level, but also at the European Union level, we need specific programs for social housing. We need programs and rules to control the rent, and you need funding. We'll not be able to do it only with private investment. For the policy that you intend to develop at national and European level, we should put the civil engineering in service of our policymakers. Otherwise, eventually not take the right road. The solutions, I will not refer them because they will be detailed, explained, but of course, you need to scale the social housing programs. We need to renovate our built heritage. We need a better and more efficient urban planning. Something is not being properly developed. We have to explore more the public-private partnerships. We have to faster the permitting processes. And of course, you need new technology. You need new tools because you have a very, very huge need for this issue in our society. As final considerations, just to refer that housing should be, as was also said yesterday in the meeting we had at the ST, housing should be interpreted as a fundamental right. We should recognize housing as an essential social infrastructure, as an essential development issue and basis for our society. Will not be competitive, will not be happy if we will not have these problems solved. So, say that, now we'll enter in the more interesting part of this roundtable, which will correspond to listening to our speakers. I will call one at a time to give their short presentation. We're quite meaning. We give only 5 minutes to each speaker, with the exception to the 2 first speakers, Mr. Platonas Tilonau, that I invite to join us, please, and Nina Lovrednek. Okay, please join us. Platonas and Nina, they will briefly present a very nice initiative developed at 2 hands. Our ECCE Council and ECCE together drafted and published recently an important document that will be briefly presented by both of them. Please, Platonas, please, Nina, join us. Please, please.
Oops, not this one, sorry.
So I will start with the common joint policy paper that we have created together with the ECCE. It's a joint initiative between ECCE and ECCE for the safe and affordable housing. And this, as already stated, was presented in Brussels. We have long discussion with the parliament members and with the President Cabinet. It was a very, very successful initiative, and we are very happy that the ECCE has asked us to join our efforts and our powers to prepare this policy paper. And I will present part of it, and then I will ask the President of ECCE, Nina, to continue presenting the rest of it, and we'll make the final conclusion and statement together with Nina on that one. So this is a coordinated European response for housing challenges. And why is that? Because housing is a social need now. The affordable housing is a huge problem that we are facing. And Europe needs a coordinated and innovation-driven strategy, because if it's not innovation, we have already found the solution. The problem is big, the problem is there. We know that it's not an easy thing to tackle, but we have to find an innovation solution, because we are engineers, to deliver safe, sustainable, and affordable housing. And today's presentation will set out our engineering vision for achieving this objective. And I hope with our esteemed guest, as already mentioned by Professor Varum, will help us to understand the most particular problem of this case, and with the help of our ECCE countries and ECCE delegates later on, we may understand the various particularities and problems of each country, so we may together find the best solution. So think about it later on as a thinking tank, as already mentioned by Umberto, to understand, to discuss, to deliver your thoughts and problems. So this is the Europe Housing Challenge. We have the 5 pillars there, and we need to understand the problem. This is a very nice slide, because we have the 5 challenges and the 5 pillars of the problem. We have the rising rent and the construction cost. And this is common in every country. Things are becoming more expensive. We have less housing, so the prices go up, the fluctuation goes up. Umberto shows percentages that we have up to 200% and more in some countries, and more than 100% in many others. So the rent is going sky high. The construction cost is already higher because of the problems we are all facing. We have limiting housing supply in urban areas because of the land that is limited, because of the problem with the planning permission, because of the problem with the people that are affected by these policies, and because we have also an unsafe and aging building stock. And this is a problem that the ECCE has ring a bell from 2020. This unsafe building stock, this aging building stock, that it is not used by people, it's there, it's aging more, it's unmaintained or abandoned, and it's creating problem. We should find a way to use this abandoned and unmaintained and unsafe building stock and make it safe. And that is why we have created in 2020 our position paper, the 3S approach: safe, sound, sustainable. You know about it, you'll see it later on. Sorry, I changed by mistake the pillar number 4 is rising energy poverty. So we have the problem with the energy, with the gas, with the electricity, with the water. All these things are increasing in price, and as also increasing the rent, and as the salaries are not changing and are not increasing on the same way, we have the rising energy prices, so all this creates the so-called energy poverty. which is very important, and it will affect heavily the living condition and the well-being of people. So it's a big problem. And of course, we have the growing inequalities and vulnerabilities of the people with special needs, of the aged people or the very young people, and we have all these inequalities that are created because of that in whole Europe. And maybe we have the same thing in Asia or in America. We like to hear your statement and your opinion about these things because we want to know what is happening globally on this thing. And these 5 pillars are very important for us, for ECCE, and we want to know the particularity of every country and the case of every country. So, the housing indicators, 60%, this is average, a 60% increase house prices in nominal terms for many countries, and in many other countries much more. We have 20% at least increase in the rents. We have 22% reduction in the building permits, in the residential building permits. So, increase in rent, increase in prices, lower building permits. The problem is there, the problem is stated. 20% of the existing building stock, at least 20%, in other countries is much higher, is not used. And according to the statistics, the modern statistic, we have more than 1 million homeless people that, and the most scaring, that includes 400,000 of children. So these are the housing indicators that we have to take into account. Now, what is the housing gap? We have to build 1.6 million new units per year. And additionally, 615,000 units are needed per year in the next 10 years. So every year, another 650,000 additional units are needed, and adding up to 1.6 million. And delivering these extra units, it will mean the huge amount of 150 billion per year. And that's public and private investment. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of investment, and that is why we are saying that engineers should be there to influence the policymaker, to force them to understand the particularities of the project, and to make them understand that this is not political only decision, this is heavily engineering solution, and politicians should work together with engineers for this one. And of course, this leads us to why the housing matters in Europe. Because, as stated already, housing is a fundamental human right. It's one of the most fundamental things. It's in the common law, it's in the statement of each country, it's in there. Housing and affordable and safe housing is needed for every people. And access to housing underpins the social cohesion, the economic productivity, and the resilience and stability of each country and of Europe as a whole. Because, as we said, it's the European Union now. It's not particular countries. So we are all in one society. And that is, Europe should face the systematic housing crisis as a big problem, and that is why we are discussing this problem today, and that is why this roundtable discussion is taking place in order to understand the problem, the particularities, and take some solution about this. So, we should think of the housing as critical infrastructure. It's not only a problem. Housing is not just a private asset. It's a social good. It requires long-term coordinated policy which should integrate safety, sustainability, resilience, and affordability. And that is why it should be treated as critical infrastructure, as water, as electricity, as all these stuff that are critical infrastructure. Housing should treat it the same way. And the ECCE contribution to the European housing agenda, as already stated and shown in my original intervention as the presidential report, as ECCE, we are very proud that we have already prepared the 3S approach, the safe, sound, and sustainable, which is a comprehensive engineering framework promoting the basic stuff that is needed for the affordable housing, for the safe housing, and later on our manifesto for building a resilient future for the change and climate-proof design on infrastructure for generations to come. And at this stage, I will give the floor to Nina to continue with the next missing link. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Platinos. And what is the missing link? EU is focused on affordability. EU is at the moment focused on affordability and sustainability, and the missing link is resilience. And if there is one issue, EC and ECCE should campaign at the European level, that is resilience. Current politics remain fragmented. So what should we do as an engineer? We should focus on and implement the seismic risk, the flooding, the extreme temperature that is the result of this climate influence of the climate changes. And one important things is structural durability and maintenance of the old and existing building. And the last one, according to the new geopolitical situation, is the civil protection requirement. The EU is fencing with all this strategy relating to defense, and all are fencing how to build defense and offense industry, how to produce all this that is matter for defense, but nobody taking care of the civilian. I think that we engineers, the only one that should take care of our citizens, of our family, of our children, to implement the integration of the shelter for civilians as the mandatory in the designing of the new building stocks according to this initiative for affordable housing. So the European housing resilience framework should be developed. Energy performance alone, energy performance alone is not enough. A building must also remain safe, quality, and functional through all this design life of the building. No one alone can solve this problem. There should be contribution with the public and private sector. And what is the public sector can contribute to solving this crisis? We recommend to big cooperation of the public, and also the government has a critical role in this process. So we recommend to expanding the social housing, but not to produce the ghetto for our citizens. Simplifying planning procedure, mobilizing vacant building stock, implementing the life cycle maintenance as a mandatory, and put this into strategic, promoting sustainable structure design. So we should put a particular attention to be given to reducing permitting delay. This process of permitting is very big obstacle in this all the process of solving the houses crisis. And what can the private sector contribute? The private sector can contribute with the implementation, the modular construction, with the innovating financing model, to adaptive reuse of the existing building stock, and to produce the cooperative housing model. So we engineers must actively participate in this innovation to ensure quality, safety, and maintenance of all the building. At the European level, the engineers promote industrialized construction, where is traditional on-site construction. So industrial construction offer major opportunity. They have these benefits of industrial construction include faster delivery, improved quality control in the factory, reduce the waste, better working condition, and greater predictability. However, industrialization must remain engineers' leads. We are the driver of the industrialized construction, industrialized build. At yesterday conference, there is some speaker that promotes this industrialized construction begin with the engineers, begin innovation in the design phase. I'm totally agree with this conclusion. So standardization should not compromise structural performance or resilience. And what is the roles of our engineers? Engineers are merely designer, but we are not only designer. We are guardians of public safety because our work influence of the health and quality and security of the recipients of our services. We should be also the leader of the innovation. As I told you on the previous slide, that the innovation starts in the design. So we can also managing the risk in this process, and also we are cadastrian of the long-term performance. Housing solution require engineering leadership from planning through operation and maintenance. Our contribution is essential in all stages from the stage of planning to the stage of designing, to the stage of the construction phase, and especially in the stage of the maintenance of existing building. But as engineer, we should also be focused that all this process and all this design should be human-centered housing. Ultimately, housing is for the people, for our citizens. So affordable housing must support dignity, health, inclusion, accessibility, and well-being of our citizens. But also, good housing provides daylight, ventilation, thermal comfort, acoustic comfort, and adaptability through the lifelong of the building. So, human-centered design should remain at the heart of the housing policy. So also it should be focused in our works. And what is also important for us is that finances what the matter. What is important for the engineers? So ECCE and ECCE strongly advocate life cycle thinking. Too often decisions focus on initial construction cost. We should promote to instead of investing should reward of resilience, durability, maintenance, adaptive reuse of existing housing stocks, and digital asset managers, because we can implement all these digital tools that we use on our daily base work. So the lowest initial cost really delivers the lowest lifetime cost. We should not be focused on the beginning. We should be focused on the totally lifelong of all our existing and new building. Oh, just a moment. And the harmonization, regulatory and professional harmonization. Europe would benefit for the greater harmonization. So what is the potential initiative include? Common resilience indicator, housing digital passport, harmonized performance standard, and mutual recognition of engineers' competitiveness. ECCE and ECCE can play important leadership role in this process. The most frequent statements that we hear from the politician is how to build quicker and how to build cost efficient. So the quality, resilience cannot be compromised by a quicker builder and cost reduction. So engineers, the role of our engineers to promote how to build safer, how to build resilience building, and how the result builds in the favor of our citizen. And the conclusion I give to the together. Yes.
We'll make them together. It's a joint effort, so start. You can start.
So, housing, as we told today several times, housing is the fundamental human rights. So, Europe needs housing that is affordable, safe, resilient, and sustainable.
And our final, I think, strong closing statement that we can do together with Nina is that Europe must deliver housing that is affordable for its citizens and engineer to be safe, resilient, and sustainable. Because Europe's housing challenge is not simply a construction challenge. It is a challenge of social cohesion, economic competitiveness, and sustainability. Engineers have the expertise to transform this challenge into an opportunity, and we should grab this challenge and make it an opportunity. It's our big time to find the best ideas, to find the best solution, and make this challenge an opportunity. By combining innovation, technical excellence, and coordinated with Europeans and policymakers, we can deliver the affordable, safe, and sustainable houses to the scale that Europe needs. And the scale, as you saw before, it's massive. So, with the help of all of you, we hope to find the best solutions for our citizens and for Europe. Thank you so much.
Can I add one more word?
Of course.
In order to promote our policy paper at the EU level and also at your national level, we prepare one brochure. All our conclusion is in this paper form to be spread out to your national level and also also EU level. At the next General Assembly, each of you will receive this brochure in the paper form, and also we prepare one postcards with the clear and state message for the affordable, safe, resilient, and sustainable housing. And on each of these documents, there is a QR code, so you can download all our joint policy paper. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Platonas, thank you, Nina. And now we move on. I invite Professor Fernando Branco to join us, please. Meanwhile, I will not read the CVs of our guest speakers. I apologize for it, but I invite all our participants to read the information to us distributed. So, Professor Fernando Branco, he's a prominent professor from the Technical University in Lisbon, and he is also past president of ECCE. Professor Fernando Branco will share with us an experience that he recently was involved with. Please.
Okay. Good morning, new and old friends. I'm going to do a 5-minute presentation, so if you want to see old slides, please don't blink your eyes. Okay, I'm going to present a project where I'm involved that basically consists in building a factory for buildings. The idea was to pick up the ideas from a man that you know, the man that built 100 years ago, and that technology is arriving now to the construction. So we are around 100 years late. Basically, the concept of a production line for buildings that we are using now is to consider a basic element that is the wall of an apartment, okay? And that wall is built with everything on it. You have the pipes, the reinforcement, the outlets, everything is there. So you begin to build the the walls. Those walls are then connected in a chariot. So you see the walls. It's here, sorry. The walls are connected with the slab here in this base in the chariot. The slab is concreted there. And they are prepared for the chariot and they enter in the production line. This is the production line. So you see the rails, they enter here, and in this production line, they are finished. They are painted. You can put the windows, everything. You can see here the protection for the sun, the windows, everything is there. And then you can put the tiles, everything. And at the end, they are parked and they just go to the building. In the building, during this process, in the site of the building, you do the foundations, so you get that time, and you begin to mount all these structures. In a few weeks, well, let's say this building took 2-3 months. You have all the placement. You see the walls are already painted, and you have the finished building. That is a normal building, very quick. This is another building, and you see inside, after you need to have some finishing in the inside, but this was a dormitory for students in this case, okay? The use of this type of constructions is you need to take very care of the connections because it's a connection of several individual elements. So we invested a lot, and this is the secret of this system, is the type of connections that we use, that we test a lot in the laboratory, because we are a seismic country, and we want that when seismic comes, all these things don't come down. Eh? So all these things were tested a lot. Now we are entering the second phase. The second phase is in the production line to introduce the concept of the robots. The problem is you have a lot of robots for mechanical engineer, but you don't have robots for civil engineer. For construction, you don't find robots. So we are developing at the university the first robots. We have the first study is related to cranes to make the installation of the elements. We are already trying to prepare a prototype of a crane. And the second one is a robot that we develop to put tiles. Tile is an operation that costs a lot in the construction. And we develop a robot that puts tiles. You can see it was difficult because to find the glues and everything that allows this situation, but you see the robot places the tiles, and the tiles are completely red. They don't fall down. See, it's not a trick, it really works. Okay. And you have the use of robots. Basically, just to see the idea, what we are facing in terms of automated construction is we are very delayed, and we are trying to ultrapass the conventional construction. But it's still difficult to forget about the bricks. We use still a lot of bricks, but remember, bricks were invented 3,000 before Christ. I think it's time to change the construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Branco. And now I invite the next speaker, Professor Vasco Freitas. Please join us. Professor Vasco Freitas is a professor at the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Porto. His expertise is divided in different areas, namely hydrothermal behavior, pathology, building rehabilitation, and historical conservation. Professor Vasco Freitas is also an advisory member of our Order of Engineers. And the question that you raised to Professor Vasco Freitas is how to minimize costs in rehabilitation. Thank you, Professor.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. I prepared a short presentation concerning minimization costs in rehabilitation. The challenge. Nowadays, to buy a house become very expensive in Portugal and in the other countries in Europe. In the other way, to rent a house become also in the last years very expensive, and some families have difficulty to buy or to rent a house. This is the question. Why you can minimize costs? The cost is very important, and the cost depends on the strategy and the solution. We think the rehabilitation is a way, it's a contribution for this problem. To rebuild sometimes is connected with complex legislation that we need to think about that. Legislation and users. In the last years, in different European countries, the EPBD, the directives, impose the transposition of the directive for each country, and you improve a lot the performance of the buildings concerning the energy efficiency and the implementation of renewable energy. So the strategy is clear, is to try to define a very good performance level of a building. This is the strategy for the different countries in Europe. It's the same for new buildings and is similar for existing buildings. But the thermal performance is connected with costs. Of course, you need comfort inside the house, but depending on the money that the family have. And we know the energy certification don't translate well the energy consumption and the CO2 production. And the question is why this not happen? This not happen because in some countries, especially in the south countries, the energy spent for heating and cooling is not the theoretical energy for comfort. A lot of studies show clearly this difference between the certification and the measurement in real buildings. It is very important to take into account the climate, the energy poverty, and some cultural aspects. And in all European countries, we use the same strategy. But it's important to know the difference of the severity of the climate. It is not the same in all countries. It is also very important to take into account the income. Some families don't have enough money to eating and to cooling your house during all time. Another problem, of course, connected with the income of the families is the energy price. The number of minutes that we need to pay a kilowatt hour is different in different European countries. And some cultural aspects, it is difficult to change. In some European countries, especially in Portugal, we have the practice to open the windows sometimes in winter time, and this is change a lot the energy consumption for comfort in different countries. So sometimes we put a lot of equipments that we don't use. Sometimes we put a very strong insulation that in reality we don't use. This is important to think about that. So the performance is important, but the performance is connected with costs. We can do nice cars. The price is not the same and the performance is not the same. What is important in the strategy for the rehabilitation of existing buildings is to reduce the discomfort in wintertime, the blue area, and to reduce the discomfort in summertime, the orange area. This is the good strategy to try to solve the problem with minimization of costs in buildings. So the minimization of discomfort maybe is the good strategy to have more comfortable houses and to try to reduce a little bit the price. But what is the problem? In my point of view, we don't use now the best approach for a lot of families, especially in social housing, especially in rehabilitation of existing buildings. What you want is to achieve a very high performance level. Sometimes we introduce a lot of equipment that we don't use. Sometimes we put a very high thickness of thermal insulation that we don't use. Why? Because some families use intermittent heating and intermittent cooling. We need to think different. We need to try another approach for this problem. And a conclusion, a short conclusion, in my point of view, we need more flexibility in the regulation. We need to discuss the level of heat pumps, the level of PV panels, the level of thermal insulation of roof, windows, and walls. We need, in rehabilitation, to use an adaptive approach. We need to take in account, in the first step, the passive approach in the rehabilitation process. We need to take in account, of course, the energy poverty of the families. In 2 words, we need to define different levels. In the rehabilitation process, we need to have different levels of the regulation to try to reduce a little bit the costs to promote housing for all families with more money or with less money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vasco Freitas. Now I invite Professor Hipólito Sousa. I have the pleasure to introduce Professor Hipólito. He's also professor at the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Porto. He is a former director of the Civil Engineering College of the Ordem dos Engenheiros, and he is founder and director of one design big office in the north of Portugal. So, Hipólito, please, we're ready to listen to you. And you have invited Hipólito to speak about costs. He has developed a lot of studies in the university trying to split the different sources that influence the price of housing. Please, Hipólito.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. I'm trying to, in a short presentation, to discuss a little bit the cost issues related with affordable housing in construction solution. Obviously, I'm going to speak more about the Portuguese reality. That is the reality that we are studying. The problem is already framed, but I'm going a short way to recover. The cost of housing in many countries is clear behind the means of many families. I feel that Portugal is one of the countries in Europe where this imbalance is most accurate. Housing production in general and affordable housing in particular is failing to keep pace with demand, which is putting pressure on prices. The public sector, at least in Portugal, whether central or local, builds very little and at slow pace and at high cost. So to solve the problem by the public initiatives is not so easy. The private sector, which is more agile, prefers to build for those with great purchasing power and for investment purposes. So we have this problem to solve. That is essential to provide social support for low-income families. Looking to our national statistics and based on 2009 as a basis of 100, we see the evolution of the costs, of the cost of production. I'm always here, and we see that it remained quite stable, but in the last 7 years it increased a lot. So according to the numbers we have, we are increasing more or less 1.6. But when we look to the prices, this is the crisis that we have in Portugal. These are the prices of selling houses, and we realize that they increased a lot. This is the new houses, and these are the average, but the price that increased more is the existing buildings. So, trying to go deeper in this analysis, we can say that the current cost in Portugal of building standard housing expressed in euro for square meter of the gross private floor area. The gross private floor area is the area that people owns, is always in excess of 2,500 euros for square meter. This figure includes the land, all service, design, supervision, and so on, taxes and fees that are expressive in Portugal, and construction itself. If we look just only to the construction alone, the cost nowadays is around 1,600 euros for square meter, but the gross floor area, that is different than the gross private floor area. And in residential, and around 0.5 thousand euros for square meter for underground car parks, storage rooms, and so on. So these numbers push the prices of selling houses to quite higher levels for our families. So when we look to the cost decomposition, so we are in normal situation, not in expensive situation, in between the 2.5 thousands to 3.8 thousand euros for square meter of gross private area. The decomposition is more or less this one. The cost of the construction is between 74, more or less, to 52% of the global cost, depending of the cost of the land. If we are in more peripheral areas, we are probably more in this situation. If we are in more urban areas, more qualified urban areas, not premium areas, we are more closer to this scenario. So the taxes and fees are between 16 to 18%. The design and supervision, let's say the services, many design companies and supervision and so on, are quite between 4 and 5%, quite more or less the same thing, and land between 6 to 25%. That means that an apartment with 70 square meters, the production cost, depending mainly of the land, is between those two limits. This is the reality in Portuguese nowadays. So we as engineers, what are we able to do to discuss this problem? So I feel that there are two approaches. Let's say what I call policy decisions that are more far from engineers, that we can say questions of, and I'm speaking obviously more of the Portuguese reality, urban planning and land at reduced costs. This is a problem in Portugal, but see, this is a question of policy. Tax and fee exemptions and reduction, this is another important issue. Support for generation and refurbishment and strategies for this kind of works that we feel that are very important is also something more strategic for governments and so on. What is, in my point of view, from the side of engineers, the technical issues? Construction design solutions and codes. Lower cost and industrialized construction methods. Simpler contracting procedures for public works. This is, in our situation, a very, very huge problem. The problem is a public contractor. Some suggestions, some discussions, some questions, to which I don't have obviously the answer, but have some ideas, to adopt more standardized, simple and repeatable designs to enable solution to be scaled up. So we have too much different solutions, and I believe that we must have more standardized solutions. To focus more on design build and EPD, involving all the supply chain in search of more economical solutions. This is, in my point of view, a way also. Modular and prefabricated construction solutions that I feel that are fundamental. Do they help to reduce costs or just shorten the timeline, having in mind that time is also money? To simplify, reduce technical regulations in certain performance requirements with different tiers. I feel this is important. My colleague Vasco Freitas spoke also about that. I feel that in some kind of performance requirements, probably we should look and try to simplify. To change some established construction practice in Portugal, I feel that according to the kind of workmanship that we have, some solutions that we like to have in our houses are too much expensive and should be changed, and at last to adopt, in some cases involving construction and self-building, and to have people in some cases to do their own houses. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Hipólito Sousa, and now I invite Professor Rui Calejo. But before changing to Rui Calejo, Hipólito, you touched very important points. I'm sure that many of the questions that will rise to all of you as our speakers is, how to reduce the price. So, Professor Rui Calejo, he's professor also at the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Porto. He was member of the ECCE Executive Board, and he's also managing a big design office here in the north of Portugal. He's the expert on acoustic behavior of buildings, but today we ask Professor Calejo to share with us his vision on the influence of building permit in affordable housing. Please, Rui.
Thank you, Humberto, for your so kind presentation. Yes, I was member of ECCE 25 years ago. Yes, just yesterday. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for your attention. Thank you, ECCE, for the nice invitation. It is quite a pleasure to be here, 25 years after my last involvement in ECCE Code of Ethics. This was from my hands and Donda Fonseca back in 2000, okay? It's important to change it again and maintain it. Well, now about building permits. What are we talking? Okay. What are we talking about? We are talking about bureaucracy. Are we talking about costs? Are we talking about time? Is this really a problem? Or is an excuse for our failures, as civil engineers? Let us see what I got. We are talking about cost and time, okay? Cost and time are the most common comments about permitting process. It's quite expensive. It takes too long. It's not my opinion. Let's talk a little bit about costs. What I got here is some information for residentials for communities. This is volume of construction. And this is, in this scale, more or less, the global cost of permits in Europe. 500,000, 0.1 million for all Europe. As a global scale, this is not too costly. I don't know if it's punctually it is expensive, but it's not expensive. It's a very small number. These are dates, statistical, with an average of 2.34, which is low. And even for local authorities, the number is small, is insignificant, because it is no more than 2%. This is a very small percentage of permitting budget. So it is not expensive for the promoters. It's not a big loss for local authorities. In my opinion, but this is my proper opinion, this is not a problem. Let's go on, because I have only 5 minutes. Time, yes, that's a problem. At the European level, there is a huge difference. I run myself help of a very important study of João Branco Pedro, Fritz Major, and Henrik Winchester. This study is not from last year, but I think it's still very important. We are able to see the time that you need for a permitting process. It changes from the first time you appeal for a permit till you get the permit for construction or for use of construction. We are here dealing from 3 to 31 months, just adding the legal time for answers. Delays are not here. 31 months without delays. This is a problem. Yes, this is a problem because strategies are not able to support 31 months to have a decision of construction. We are able to see that we have countries. Portugal is leader, but 8 months, 3 months, 8, I think the average is about 8.2 months. Are we not able to do better than this? You should. We should. This is a problem. And why is this a problem? What could be done to resolve this problem? World Bank has insisted all over the world, but especially for Europe. This is for Europe, not for South America or Himalayas. This is for Europe. Consolidating requirement regulations, making information easily available. Sometimes, if you want permits in some countries, you must engage a very specialized team to get permits. This could be available for everyone. Environmental processes. We need environmental processes. The solution is not to avoid them, it's to get risk-based environmental approvals. This is very good. We are able to trigger 90% of problems with risk approach. Otherwise, we must make enormous studies. Reviewing the cost of permits, maybe in some countries could be, and we could need lower fees. Procedures, it's very important because sometimes electronic platforms are not solutions. Why electronic platforms are not solutions? They change the interface, but they don't change the solution. Things go there and stay there sometimes. We need to standardize the electronic platforms for permittings. And duplication of tasks. I avoid to bring here a smart scheme that shows in Poland, okay, that's what I got. In Poland, the very heavy, tricky path to get a permit. I identified 32 different possible points in the process. Aren't we able to do better? I think so. And when we have inspections, there are countries we need to have 7 different inspections of a new building. Aren't we able to do this together in just one inspection? There are countries we have this, other countries we don't have inspections, but countries with 7 different inspection bureaus. This is the solutions we are able to be done. And creating for strategic areas, political, for example, for affordable houses. Affordable houses are not simpler houses. House is a social demand for a civil engineer, and affordable houses are houses that has the main minimal level of quality should be the same, okay? That's my opinion. Easy ways for strategic problems. Okay, conclusions to finish. Cost maybe not so important, time to be dramatically reviewed, and strategy is the change of process. We need to change process regarding the approval of new constructions. And 5 minutes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rui Calejo. Now I invite Antonio Carlos Rodrigues to join us. Antonio Carlos Rodrigues, he is CEO of the group Casais, an international construction group. He's also vice chairman of our National Association for Civil Construction and Public Works Industries. Antonio Carlos, please join us. We're ready to listen to you, to listen to your vision on how can the industrialization and the construction of site help to reduce this big problem.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon. It's already good afternoon. Let me see how this works. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the problems. I think that many of the problems have already been issued by our illustrious speakers. But actually, well, we are feeling the pain as a construction company, as a group, the pain of the fragmentation of our area, of our construction area, this low predictability, which affects cost and time, which we have talked a lot. And all the pressure, and I think that the pressure is mainly on Europe, because if we see what's happening all over the world with people that are moving from Latin America, from Africa, from the conflict zones, they are pushing in Europe, and this is creating new demand. And if we see Portugal has increased in the last few years a lot of population, Spain the same, so this pressure is on, and it will continue. Why aren't we able, if there are so many people in so many parts of the world, why can't we just bring more people and resolve the problem? The problem is that our business model has been supported by, in the last few years, in the last decades, always by getting cheap labor somewhere else and doing the construction. That model doesn't work anymore. It's not possible because there are other types of work available, and people just don't like to be in construction because we're still in the medieval ages of construction, if we look at it, and that's not attractive. So that's the major point. It's not just about bringing people, it's about attracting talent and keeping that talent. And if we talk about engineers, it's also affecting because we're not able today to attract engineers to the construction site. And if we compound also with that fragmentation that I talked about, well, 94% of the companies have 1 to 9 employees, so very few, very small companies, and they don't invest in training, and they don't have programs with the universities, so the problem gets even worse. And if we look at what's happening in with the retirement of most of this population that works in our sector, well, we have to substitute them, and we have to deliver more to what's coming to meet the affordable housing, and not only that. And as if it was not sufficient, yes, construction is changing. So technology is getting better to the buildings, so it's more technological. So you are not going to do the same electrical installation, not the same HVAC installation. You need more skills, so you need another type of training. And this brings me to, yes, industrialization, the modularity. Why are we talking more about this? As prefabrication has been around for many years, but there's, I think, 2 big things happening. One is technology, and technology is providing the tools for us to execute and to cooperate. And if we talk about cooperation, and when I look at this classical path of doing construction and the digital integrated construction, this, for me, is always related to time and to cost, because time is money, and if we are doing rework, it's cost, and most of it, it's mostly we're talking about conflict. We are in a sector that's conflict-based relations because we are always fighting why the project why the design is not accurate. But technology is what is now enabling cooperation, and what was needed in the past, that people sit together at the same table. Now we can sit in a computer in the cloud, and we can exchange all that information and simulate whatever we want to do before we go into the construction site. So very quickly, what have we been doing? It's mostly about betting on this virtual design phase so that we can actually do the industrialization. Because a lot of people, we're talking about BIM, and BIM, yes, it's very important, but if you do it, the construction in a traditional way, forget about it. You don't have a digital twin. You have a very nice BIM model, but the actual building will not match the BIM model. So if you are doing industrialized construction, yes, because everything has to be done in a parallel manufacturing setup, and everything has to fit, otherwise you don't have a building. What are we doing? This is a platform, so I believe this is the first platform that we can say that has a worldwide footprint. We have 20 partners. This is an Austrian-based company that developed the IP for this timber hybrid solution. We're shareholders also, but we're the licensees for Iberia. And we have 20 partners, and we are building as a cooperative buildings from Singapore to Canada, and with the same technology, and sharing the knowledge, which would be not possible if we are talking about doing everything at a location. We developed not only the structural system, but also all the components that go inside. So from the MEP to the toilets, everything that's technical. Today, 80% of the things that are more technical, we can take it to the construction site from an off-site facility. And obviously you get the digital twin, which is an add-on. Some examples, this was the first, we call it the first because it was the first building that we did 4 years ago. And this building is actually, you see, yes, it's a residential building and also a hotel. So it's actually 2 buildings. And the benefits on the cost and also on the time is that once you sign the contract, you always have traditional foundations. In this case, the podium was also in regular concrete, but you're already doing it at the same time at the factory. And once you have reached that podium level, then what you see here is this: every 2 days, 1 floor goes up, and then the interior, if you see it's going fast, but everything that will be fitted on the interior is already being put already at the slab at the same time. So when people are going next week to that floor, everything is there. Everything that they need, they don't need anything else. So just some examples. This is the structural system. This is the MEP systems that we are manufacturing. And so these are the 3 elements: facades, structural, and MEP. And this is the final result. Housing, in this case. This one is a hotel. And like I said, this is, let me see my last slide. It took us around 4 years to, I think it's, sorry, yes. It took us around 4 years to do just 2 projects. And on the last 18 months, we did this 11 ones. So it's actually scaling for us. For us, it's going to be the new way of construction. Thank you.
So thank you, Antonio. Stay with us. And I will invite all the speakers to join us, please. Senta na primeiro lugar. So, we received a lot of information. It was quite, it were quite insightful presentation, so you learned a lot. I will invite you to join and to sit in the sequence that we proposed in the slide. And so, we have spoken a lot about cost, about time, and here is our problem now. Time is short for too many questions. If you allow me, I will start with a single direct question for each one of our speakers. I will appeal for your answers to be as short as possible in order to try to receive some questions from our audience. I will start with Antonio Carlos. Some of the questions are a bit provocative. Be ready, please. Antonio, can affordable housing targets be achieved using traditional construction practices and methods?
Sorry.
I can repeat.
Yes.
Can affordable housing targets be achieved using traditional construction methods?
Well, I think that the answer is no, because we are seeing, and it doesn't matter if we are in a, we have operation in many countries where labor is not an issue. Yet the problem exists. So it's not a problem about the traditional having the resources available. It's just because of the speed, it's because of the quality, and it's because of the product. The product that we need to deliver needs to be prepared for the next years. One of the things that I didn't talk about, and this is for me one of the most important things in sustainability, is that the way we built in the past, actually it's the less sustainable way because it doesn't keep up with the changes of society. Every time we need to change the interior, we need to break it. And we need to put it in a landfill, and we need to extract new materials. What you have seen there is that we are doing industrialized. You have traceability of the materials. So we talked about, I think, someone about the passport of the materials. So we are doing the buildings in a way that you can actually resource the resources to actually use them elsewhere. So the next century, we need to build that like this, traceable with component-based solutions, with a kit of parts, so that we can, and if there are, at least have some standardization that you can actually use them from one building to the other. then that would be the ex libris. No?
Thank you, Antonio. Rui Calejo, how can we simplify and reduce times associated with permitting processes without reducing safety, neither quality?
That's very simple. Studies are already made as long as I was able to understand. We must uniform the process of getting permits. Let us say, not to have more than one entity looking for design, looking for process, and have just one entity with global capacity. But mainly than this is to put responsibility on the engineers that promote solutions. If you put responsibility on engineers, and if engineers are able to take that responsibilities, we don't need to check nothing more, because everything that comes from engineer would be good. But
thank you, Rui Calejo. Hipólito Sousa, we have touched the critical point on costs. And now the question is that I would like you to explore more. How can we contribute for the reduction of the costs in construction, mainly in residential buildings?
This is not an easy question. I put some questions. I try to summarize some points of view. I'm always speaking about prices and not costs, not selling costs. This is another problem that I'm not so able to discuss. But, and more related with Portuguese reality, I feel that we should have more common and uniform solutions. We make too much different buildings. We must have more uniform solution from one side. I feel that that was spoken from Antonio is fundamental, this change of way of producing buildings. And also I feel that in some requirements, some performance requirements, I'm not speaking about, let's say, the level 1 requirements. Probably we should have, in some cases I feel that our level requirements is not compatible with the money of families to have houses. I feel this is one point that should be discussed. And also we have some culture ideas for our buildings that probably should be discussed. For example, our pipes in kitchens and bathrooms are all included in the walls. Some kinds of things that even for affordable houses people is used to have probably should be discussed. I'm not just saying to change, but should be put in discussion to see if they even are also some aspects that could reduce costs.
Thank you, Hipólito. Professor Vasco Freitas, we know that you have strong opinion about it, and so I would like to listen to you, your opinion about the financial impact that the carbonization strategy and goals that you have by 2050 will have in the existing built heritage.
Thank you. We have an important challenge until 2050 to improve the performance of a lot of dwellings that we have now available, but we need to put a lot of money to do that. Of course, the decarbonization, it's very important, but it's necessary money to do that. And the question is, who pay this change, this big change? Taking account the experience in the past, the families need to pay maybe about 85% of this improvement of quality, and maybe the government, depending on the country, the government can pay maybe 15% of this money. And taking account the values shown by ADEN, ADEN is the Portuguese Energy Agency, we need to spend about 50,000 euros per person to do this job. I think it's difficult. I think we need to think about the improvement that we implement in the comfort and the energy efficiency in the houses, and we need to think if the families have enough money to do that. In my point of view, we need to think about the speed of this change. For some families, this is not a problem, but for others, maybe it's a very, very big difficulty.
Thank you, Vasco Freitas. In fact, indeed, as you referred, we have to think on those goals from a perspective of the civil engineering. So, Professor Fernando Branco, we know that you have opinion on that also. What are, in your opinion, the political solutions that we should adopt in different countries and also in Europe to reduce the costs?
Well, political are many, depends on each politician. But I prefer to speak on technological solutions. And the technological solution, as I presented.
Can you listening?
This is a technological problem.
Yes. Was not done by a civil engineer, for sure.
Okay. Look, if you keep the classical construction, the only thing that will occur is the costs will increase and all the others and the time will difficultly reduce. You need to change everything if you want to reduce costs, increase the production, and reduce time. And the solution for this was discovered by Henry Ford 100 years ago. And why construction never tried to change to production line that later allowed the use of robotics? We need to do that. It's not time anymore to put a brick and after another brick and after another brick. No, we need to find new technical solutions for the buildings that allow us to produce in a factory the buildings. This was discovered 100 years ago for the cars, and we need to do that now again. We are in a time to forget the classical construction. Of course, we can't keep it to make nice small buildings, nice small houses and so on. But if we want to find a solution of social development, to build a lot of buildings, the solution is only industrialization. There is no other.
Thank you, Fernando Branco. Nina, in your opinion, digital building passports, how do they can help to attenuate this big problem?
I think that the digital housing passport is just a result of the old process of the digitalization, and I think that is necessity to be implemented. But this digital building passport should be result of digitalization, all the process from the digital building permit through the digital logbook and implementation of this. I'm coming from Croatia, and we have really digitalized all the process of the construction, from the designing to the obtaining the usage permit. So we are maybe one of the three countries in the Europe that already has implemented this platform of digital logbook. According to the information from the High-Level Construction Forum, in this sector, only the implementation of digital logbook is in the Estonia and Finland, and the European Commission didn't have any information that Croatia also is going in this direction. So this digital logbook is not only transform this paper form to the e-form. This is the platforms that is managing all this construction phase of the building. All the related documents from the building permits, all the project, all the design are uploaded on this platform, on the contracts between the investor, supervisor company, investor to the construction company. All these QA documents are uploaded, and all the managing of the process of construction is on this platform. So when you finalize your construction phase, you also have in digital form pre-prepared report of the site engineers, pre-prepared form of the report of the supervision engineer, and when you finish with your construction phase, all relevant documents relating to this building is on this platform. So based on this document, you can obtain this digital building parcel. So I think this is not the future. It can be applied now, but a lot of countries should implement this process, because the digitalization is one of the focus of the EU for all this, for all our sectors.
Thank you, Nina. And Platonas, the hardest question is for you. How can civil engineering, from education to professional acts, can really contribute in an efficient and in a direct manner in reducing construction costs, in accelerating the project delivery, in promoting innovation in housing? And please, feel free to criticize the universities.
So we have the $1 million question now, huh? Okay, we have to go for a holistic solution. It's a solution that will start from the beginning. Actually, we have to think at the university level to teach our students how to work the digital way, how to use correctly the softwares, but never forget the basic principles on that, how to know to judge all these sophisticated things that we are integrated with digital tools, digital twins, with the BIM, with the Revit things, with the new finite element analysis tools that we are using to find the correct way as engineers, because engineering judgment is the most important. We should teach them to use all this new technology, but they should never forget the basic principle and the engineering judgment. And then we have to go to the construction site and see. They have to implement all this new technology that we know that is there, and a lot of industries are using it, and try to shift it in the whole construction site. Because as stated by our distinguished guest, and it was very, very correct, if you don't have the correct industry and you say, I'm using BIM, but the industry cannot support, the construction site cannot support, then you just waste time and money. So you just increase the cost thinking, we may save money. No. You have to have holistic solution, starting from the design phase, going to construction, implementation, maintenance, and whole life cycle. Because also maintenance of the buildings, if it's very important. We see all this abandoned stock of aging building stock that we have is because we don't have a correct maintenance plan. We don't know how to use this building. We never have a plan of every 5, 10, 20 years to maintain them, retrofit them, strengthen them then if needed, and use them correctly. So it's a holistic solution that should come out of this, and I'm very happy that today we are discussing all these things, and we have so many wisdom came out of this discussion, and I'm waiting to see your conclusion on that, Hubert.
Thank you, Platonas. Now, we do have time for short interventions, since we have here in the audience colleagues from different parts of the world with strong experience, with different visions. Please share with us your vision, make your point, or raise a question to one of our speakers. I will just ask you to introduce yourself briefly and to put your question as short as possible. We have already one registration, please. We'll need help with the microphones, please. If you like, you can join us. If it is not working, you can join us here. Please join us here. Go ahead.
I have a question to Professor Calejo. In your study, it was very interesting about the timeline to get the permit in the different countries. Have you any findings about the influence of poorly prepared projects? Maybe in the phase 0, that the investor does not really know what he wants, or less educated or less experienced engineers and architects. on the investor side from design or on the side of the administration that gives you the permit? Because on both sides we see that are poorly prepared projects.
Thank you for the question. That's a very, very interesting questions. Whether to have good engineering in the project side or in the local authority side. My opinion, I didn't focus this on my studies, but it's my opinion. The engineering, there must be always good engineering. We must not be glad if, no problem, in the project phase it's simple, you do whatever you want, because we have local authorities very good. No, this is not good. Project must born with quality, must finish with quality, and once it's presented to local authorities for presentation, this process must be dematerialized. Let's say, not so much control over projects. Responsibility on engineering, that's my opinion. I'm sorry if it's not agreeing with your side, but it's my opinion.
Thank you. Of course, yes.
As I told, we have implemented all the digitalization projects.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes.
wonderful.
Okay,
Go
okay.
ahead.
We implement the digitalization of the obtaining the building permit, but our government have very conservative approach how to deal with this to speed up and simplify all this process. So all the stage for obtaining the building process has a limiting time. So everything defined according to law. When you obtain in digital form your project, then is open e-conference when all the public body, creation water, creation road, creation electricity, submit their comments on the project, and this conference has a limited time. If they have any comments on your project, at the end, the conclusion, they haven't got any comments. And in this matter, the stage of permitting is going to another stage. So everything is according to this phase and according to the law defined time for each steps. Each can go fluently. But when I was also attending this high-level construction forum, I may have said the second time, I was in the breakout session relating to the speed up the permitting process. The main issue that all countries that contribute this emphasize is a problem with the environmental impact. So this caused the most extending to obtaining the building permit, especially in the infrastructure project financed by EU money. So I think as a conclusion that this digitalization process is really speed up of obtaining building permit. In the ECCE we prepare one investigation relating the implementation of the digitalization in all country members of our organization, and 70 countries contribute to this investigation, and the biggest country also contributes. Only 45% of the country that contribute in this investigation have implemented digital obtaining of the building process. So we are still in the implementation phase.
Thank you, Nina. We have two other registrations up to now, please.
Another question to all of you. Do you think we are over-regulated in Europe?
Yes.
When we call Europe, we always forget that's not the ones who are in Brussels. We send our people to Brussels. We have to involve.
Thank you. Since the question is...
So the legal environment and the standardization environment creates a lot of cost. How can we change it?
Thank you. Since the question is directed to all our speakers, I will collect, if you agree, the other questions that you have already received. There are two other registrations for interventions. Please.
Sorry, I'd just like to thank the panel for a very interesting discussion, and thank you very much for your time. Chairman, engineers can't solve all the problems. Part of the problems are policy, which Professor Schusser mentioned, and I agree with him. And when you break down the components, the first cost is land, basically the first cost, and there's a lot of conveyancing costs and stuff like that. And I think in Ireland we tried years ago to ring fence some of the costs by statutory putting a price on the land, but for, I guess, interest from contractors or whatever, it didn't allow it to go. I think that's one of the things we should do in ECCE is argue for a fair cost of land, building land. Kind of a reasonable cost. I mean, people now, if you're going to build a house, if you want to build an area, the market price can vary dramatically. It can go way up. It can be, but it should be a reasonable cost. And the other cost is the other policy cost. I think is this. I favour, like say, local authorities building the houses and renting them out over time and getting their money back. That's a policy as well, where government can come in. So we cannot solve all the problems. We can do an awful lot actually, but not all the problems. But I'd be interested in what Professor Sousa mentioned on policy. It's a comment I have, not so much a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Esther?
So, thank you for all your 5-minute presentations. I think all of them has been absolutely great. And my question is focused more for my friend Hipólito Sousa. And in his intervention, talking about cost, in one of the lines, it was written, licensing and planning low cost. So we are here, civil engineers. So if we go for this industrialized solution that is going to reduce time and price for one of the elements of the housing, but really there's a part, and this solution is going a little bit out of the competences of civil engineers, that we have the capacity to create infrastructures and to adapt this to the reality of the land. And now we are giving this responsibility more to the industrial engineers that are going to create in an industrial factory our houses. And what we must, as civil engineers, assure is that we are going to have a great planning, because this capacity of produce massive houses can create ghettos, because the planning must consider that we must create living areas, not only houses. So we need to produce all the services as hospitals, schools, and everything. So the planning is on our side, totally on our side as civil engineers and urbanistics. So I think that part will create living areas and not only houses.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful step. Paris.
Well, I have a question for all the executive speakers. What about the reuse of old apartments, old buildings? I may say that we have had some statistics, and in the prefecture of Attica, we have about 200,000 closed apartments that are not in use. But this is the first point. The second point is either we go and use them, but because I think that Europe at its whole, it's getting older, not as people, but as buildings also. Should we go and reuse the old buildings, or can we take a generous provision and demolish in order to make more sustainable cities? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, question.
Hello, I'm Elena Maniadi. I'm the second delegate of Greece. In Greece, and for example, in Creta and in other Greek islands, we have high house rental prices in coastal areas and in big cities, but low house rental prices in villages and in semi-mountains areas. So the question is similar to with colleagues from Spain, if a suggestion is governments to motivate people for decentralization and to encourage people to live in the countryside.
Wonderful.
And my question is for Antonio. Antonio, all the modularity of the systems that you guys do, you have presence in 18 countries and have managed now to optimize efficiency in manufacturing and cut cost and time. How do you guys go about the manufacturing when you open up a new country or region? Do you actually build a facility in that, or are you exporting? What's the logistics?
Wonderful. Jeanette, please. We are collecting a lot of questions.
Hi, you have a large list of questions now, so I hope you're keeping them in your heads. I have a two-part question, really. One is that I really enjoyed the presentation on modular construction. My question mainly is, apart from the countries where you've already implemented this, I see it to be very difficult to be implemented everywhere because, for example, where I'm from, even though I would love to have this, in Malta, the construction is completely different and the parcels of land are very small and we share walls. So it would be, I think, tricky or maybe something that we could investigate in the future and how this could be done. So what I'm trying to get at is we have to be careful when implementing something which we say is European, that we understand the realities of the European countries, because not every country possibly would be able to accommodate that technology so quickly. And maybe to complement what Esther was saying, I wonder whether, from a process point of view, at the moment we have a very series approach, you know? So the client goes to the architect then becomes the project lead, he or she then gets the MEP and the structural engineer and the geotechnical engineer, and everyone comes in succession. I wonder whether we could also revise that system in such a way that the engineers are brought in the beginning, because I find that there is a lot of repetition and iteration until we actually get there, and then engineers are to use, I think the word is sky hooks, structural paint, or something magic wand to make the architecture happen, which then increases cost, etc. So I wonder what your take on that is, to revise the so-called RIBA plan of work, so to speak.
Thank you, Jeanette. Before passing the word to the last intervention, I will recommend our invited speakers, please, to prepare for the answer to the questions. We'll go around the table, and please feel free to answer the questions that have been raised, or have a comment, a conclusion comment that you'd like to have from your intervention. Please.
First of all, I want to ask if we are talking about affordable rental or affordable ownership of the houses or buildings. The second thing is we check any rules that European Investment Bank use to give loans to the governments for affordable housing. And the third, it's a combination with Jeanette's question that if we are on the same level with the architecture, where they are design those buildings, and if they care about the life cycle and the maintenance of this building during the life cycle, and what is the next use of those buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. With it, I invite Antonio, please, for your final comment or answers to the questions directed to you.
So to some of the questions. What we have presented and are doing is actually based on the separation of two layers. The structure and the facade is one layer, the interior is another layer. And we try to detach both so that you can change it whatever you want to in the interior and not have to, because the building has to integrate it with the surroundings. And that has to last for 100 years. The interior, 10 years, 5 years, I don't know. So when we are doing the structure, some of the buildings are actually normal concretes in some, because it's not possible to do in this industrialized way. Some of the buildings that are possible to do, what we do, actually, we have to use a precast company that is in the 500 kilometers from the site. So if it's in Germany, it will be a precast in Germany. The drawing, the design will be central, but the fabrication, manufacturing will be local for the big elements. For the smaller elements, everything that goes, the MEP, it's high value, then there is an advantage and we can ship it to US, to Saudi Arabia. We tested it, so we can do it. But we know that it will come the time that we need local manufacturing of all these off-site solutions, because we can have local adaptation of the regulations, but we also need to, and every government, every country will want to have local production. So the demand is there, so we will have partnerships for having the supply there. Just to leave you, when I talk about these 2 layers, there's a concept that was coined like 2 years ago, that's HALO, H-A-L-O, hard assets, low obsolescence. So when I look at the building that is done like this, that's a hard asset and has low obsolescence. The logistics, as I was saying, so if you're doing the concrete, you will always be using the 500 kilometers precaster, and everything else can be shipped. Just one comment on the regulatory side, because yes, we face all of those issues when we're trying to put something that's standardized. My recommendation would be there's one small, minor, but big change, which is moving from an input-based regulation to an output-based regulation. We're used to, we want something in the specification that it says it has this centimeters of insulation. No, what we should be doing is we want a reduction or this comfort, not what we have to put, because there are probably other materials, other solutions, and we are actually more in this input-based rather than the output-based. The renovation, just because we're talking about new construction and this will end. Most of the existing buildings are the ones that need retrofits. Yes. And what I say, and I say this to the European Union, we had the opportunity to also put some papers there. And we said, look, we have to bet for the next 7 years in technology for the new construction. And within those 7 years, we will develop the technology, the laser scanning, all of those 4.0 manufacturing. And in 7 years, we will have it so good that you will enter into an existing building, do this laser scanning, and be manufacturing also in an offsite. But we are not yet there.
Thank you, Antonio. Rui Calejo, please. I'm sorry for that. I will ask all of you to be as short as possible. Sorry.
1 minute. Oh, well, there was very interesting comments on permitting and very interesting questions. Let us see the permitting process as this. We have in the center the project, okay? We have all procedures to license, to get approval. And the big frame of everything is what? Requirements for construction. If we need to act, we must act on all 3 processes. Quality projects, quality, okay, digitalization, dematerialization of processes, help of all informatics that we have today to dematerialize the process, and of course, the requirements for construction. Discussion of requirements, it's very, very important. How are we nowadays proposing extra requirements, extra quality for buildings that avoid affordable housing to achieve those levels? That's a discussion. I don't have an answer for this. But I agree fully with you. We don't need housing. We need living places, of course. And civil engineers, we work for human bodies, for humans. We don't work for other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Rui. Hipólito, please.
Thank you. Some comments, trying to answer to questions.
First, I agree that we have too much regulation. I don't know so sure about the way how to solve this, but this is I agree with that. Another question that was placed is related with how to intervene in policy decisions. I feel that from one side, and I speak mainly about obviously Portuguese situation, we have a low participation of engineers in decision and in production of laws. We see the intervention increasing of lawyers in construction every day. And what we see that many codes, many rules, they are not so applicable, and we have problems. We have amendments too much frequently. This is a problem. Another problem, I feel that construction is an activity that has a long process, and this long process needs to have stability, and this stability is not compatible with the electoral cycles. In Portugal, we have at the maximum a cycle of 4 years, and each 4 years or less, we change the government, we change a strategy, we change the policies, and this is a problem. Construction needs a planning to a larger delay. This is another situation. Somebody asked about fees and taxes. They are expensive in Portugal for building, and because we have national taxes and we have local taxes, and for city councils, the incoming for construction is very important for city councils, and from one side they want to have cheaper construction, but they are not available to lose this way of incoming. At the end, about land, we have this problem of land. So we have more or less defined in all the country the land that is available for construction, but we need a planning how to, let's say, what is a local or regional strategy to use this land in a correct way, trying to avoid those gaps and to have construction split a little bit everywhere without a strategy. In our case, I feel we lack a strategy to decide where we are going to produce housing in next years, and not only by each city council that is a municipality that is, let's say, a medium but small area of soil. We need a more global strategy, in my opinion, by region or something like that. Thank you, Hipólito. Fernando Branco.
Just 2 comments. First, related to design, architecture and structural design of buildings. When you begin to think in modular construction, the concepts change a lot. In classical construction, an architect invents a building, the engineer puts the structure inside that building, and we go to construction. In modular design, everything must be thought from the beginning. The factory procedure, the architect, and the engineer must think everything together, okay? That's why BIM is fundamental on this situation, because you need to integrate that with the equipment of the factory, with the models. The models must be created, associated to the means that exist in that factory. So architect, engineers, and factory must work completely together in the conception of each building. It's a different way. Second point, just about land. I just remember the concept that for public land, we have the solution of concession. It's something that we do in bridges and other public solutions. If you as public organization have land, you can do the concession of that land to an investor. That investor builds a building, gets the rents during some period, and at the end of that period, gives the building back to the owner of the land. It's a system that I don't know why we don't see it in buildings, but we see that everywhere, special bridges and roads and so on. So it's something that can decrease the cost of construction, initial cost of construction, around 20%. That is the cost of the land. That's all.
Thank you, thank you. Professor Vasco Freitas.
Thank you. Complementary comment concerning regulation. In my point of view, we have too much regulation. The regulation is good. It's idea of quality, of control of quality. But nowadays, we have too much regulation. It's too complex. It is too long. To give you an idea, if you put together the thermal code in Portugal, the energy code, the acoustic code, and fire code is thousands of pages. So it's too long, it's too complex, and it's difficult to use in the practice. And another problem is the question of compatibility. Some regulation is synced for a specialist in a specific area, but it's very important to take into account the compatibility of the different requirements in the legislation. I think it's something that we need to think about that, especially in retrofitting, in renovation. In retrofitting renovation, if you want to build with a low price, we need to have a lot of recommendation, but to decrease the number of mandatory requirements. This is very important to reduce the price and to use a passive approach, to use adaptive approach for our retrofitting, our rehabilitation process.
Thank you. Nina?
Yes, okay. I will stick to the Esther question relating to the land. Based on the experience in my country, our government always stays very conservative. They would like, first of all, to prepare all the law and change all the law in order to how to speed up and implement this production of affordable housing. So they changed the law in order that push all this land parcel for the affordable housing at the edge of the city, at the edge of the urban area. So after that, all this engineer society pushed them very much through the public consultation, and the government stepped back. And now in the law is predicted that all this land for the construction, the affordable housing should be implemented in the urban area to have access to the all infrastructure, to have access to all the facilities, schools, kindergarten, etc. Not to produce, as I said in my previous presentation, not produce the ghetto for the young people and for the civil that can afford the house. They also make restriction of the prices of the square meter to the 1,900 euros per square meter in the urban area, and should be less in the not so much urban area. So this is the maybe solution, but the most challenging now for them is how to find this land in the urban area, because it's impossible. So they should collaborate with the municipality, with the city, etc. So this is one of the approach from the Croatia, and the question that raised by the Paris is how to rental the vacant and empty flats and the house, as the Croatia is also tourist country. Our government checked the consume of electric energy, and 1/3 of all existing flats are empty in Croatia. There is a 900,000 flats are empty. 600,000 are totally empty. There is no energy efficient consumption, and 300,000 are using for the daily rental. So they propose the measure to activate this empty house and invite all the owner to give them for the operator renting by the government. The half the price of this rental will give in advance, and half a price after the contract is finished to mobilize. Also, we have experience due to this two big earthquake that hit Croatia 2020, how to refurbish, how to renew, how to align the old vacant building stock aligned to the to the existing norm, to upgrade their especially seismic resilience. So we have experience, and we don't have anything that can happen to us that we can solve these problems. And also, they propose one measure just to have in mind for the buying first new flats. You should pay only the half of a VAT. The half is to give government to young people to can equip all this, with this money, equip all this house with the furniture, etc.
Thank you, Nina. Platonas?
I think most of the questions were covered. I will go to the one that maybe we should change the sequence of how the client approach and correctly answer. If it's modular, the sequence is different because we all have to work together. Because modular construction, it's an effective and value engineering solution, and we'll go with that. But on the other way, on private conducts and private industry, we should try as engineers to lead. And I will give my personal experience to that. There were projects that the client came first to us. And so we were the team leaders on that. So we designed, according to our knowledge and value engineering, a solution that was cheap and viable and easy to construct. And then the rest of the people came in, the architects, the MEP, and all the rest. On other project that the client approached firstly the architect, same project, same team, almost same solution, much more expensive because the architect needed bigger span, bigger cantilever, bigger slab. So if you have heavier thickness of slab, that means heavier beam, heavier reinforcement. If you have earthquake, that means a lot of mass on the secondary items. So you go with stronger and heavier columns and heavier footings, and suddenly the cost goes up. So it is our duty to lead first, to explain to people, and this cannot be done by others. It should be done by us. Each one of us in his own country, in his own organization, he should try to give the best advice for that in order to have a more efficient and a better and a more affordable design so that we can have cheaper solution for the citizen and for Europe.
Thank you, Platonas. Platonas asked me to do a brief summary of all that happened here today. I will not be able to do it in a short time and with the rigor that it deserves. But if you allow me very briefly to highlight here 2 or 3 points that I believe are or can characterize most or many of the messages that our speakers kindly share with us. Between costs and our incoming, there is a huge gap. Considering that our salaries will not double in the next couple of years, we have to consider about costs. The solution is on the side of costs. Time consuming. The process of designing and construction is very time consuming. We have to find solutions for that. Industrialization is unavoidable. We have to take the opportunity. It was very clear from some of speakers that we have to go back and revise the requirement. Eventually, you are asking too much. We have to accelerate the permission procedures. Education. Eventually, we have to prepare our civil engineers to act in a different manner. And it was very clear from all of our speakers that you have to move to a more collaborative approach. From urban planning to design to construction to management. And also, it was very clear that you may reach our goals only if you have a strong presence of civil engineering, a strong participation of civil engineering in all the process, from strategy to planning to design to construction and to management. We have to have a strong voice. Thank you, you all, as speakers. In fact, we did brilliant interventions. It was very interesting for me, I'm sure for all the audience, to follow your perspectives, to take advantage of your knowledge. And in the name, if you allow me, Platonas, in the name of ECCE, as well as in the name of Order of Engineers, I would like to thank all of you for following this roundtable, for your comments, for your questions. And we'll have time during the breaks to continue sharing ideas with our speakers about some concerns or problems or points that you'd like to raise. Thank you all for your attention. And enjoy the lunch. Maria. Maria has... And of course, thank Maria and all the staff that is always supporting us in a professional manner.
Thank you, Umberto. Just to let you know that before we start with the lunch, we should go downstairs and outside to take our traditional group photograph. Okay? Thank you.